Donkey Kong Bananza, a game where a little girl sings and can transform her big monkey friend into these weird Dragon Ball-like fusions. These forms can range from a Super Saiyan, a weird-looking bird, and then a zebra with a whole bakery in the back. This game relies on the use of these weird powers to traverse through the core of the Earth, which makes sense for some reason, I don't really know. However, I was thinking, what if I tried to beat this game without using any of these forms? Would it even be possible? Also, this whole video was live streamed over on twitch.tv/notbasedhuman. I'd really appreciate it if you checked me out. Because this game just came out, there will be a spoiler warning ahead. However, this won't be a very accurate retelling of the story. But because the video still covers the story of Donkey Kong Bananza, you have been warned. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. In the early game of Donkey Kong Bananza, you don't even have any access to the Bananza Forms yet. So the start of this challenge is really no different from a normal playthrough, so I'm just going to speed through this first area here. For some reason, Donkey Kong just yearns for the mines, and I mean, can we blame him? Look at those arms, they were made for breaking things. And judging by what his fellow miners look like, he seems to be the only one doing actual work here. After breaking through the mines and collecting all of the bananas in the area, we enter this room where this monkey is defending his gold from these weird octopus looking guys. So we do what anyone would do. Punch the octopi and take what's rightfully ours. After borrowing this dude's gold, we find our final banana in the mines. Although while we try to break it, we get sucked up into this big red ball. We wake up and a rock falls on top of our head. We find out that DK decided to get freaky and take his pants off as well. We break ourselves and our little monkey friends out of the rubble and find that Ingot Isle somehow survived getting crushed, but we look past that. This weird purple thing falls from the sky and of course it's our job to check it out. While we climb up Ingot Isle, all of these weird vines appear, and because I can't control my anger, I pick up this rock from the ground and start smacking everything in sight. And no, I did not die here, your eyes are just playing tricks on you. Climbing up to the only spot that's not infested by vines, which is convenient, I know, my little goons over here tell me that since the purple rock fell from the sky, this weird purple metal has started taking over Ingot Isle. After running into a nearby cave to jump the little rock, we find the little shit stuck into the floor where it belongs, but we decide to rip it out anyways to assert dominance over it. It calls me a monkey and runs away because of course it does, so we chase it towards getting jumped by these octopus guys again. Because I want all the smoke, I smash the octopus into the floor and decide to get the final blow on the rock. However, DK decides to channel his inner Taylor Swift and starts to sing to it. Because the rock looks like the goat from My Singing Monsters, we put our differences aside and I let it sit on my back. True ones know who that spot is really reserved for. We make our way back to the Goon Squad, and using the power of music, we're able to destroy the machine plaguing my home. We take our rock friend up Ingot Isle, stealing from my day ones before deciding to leave forever. At the top, we find this weird machine protected by this glass looking shield, and it also has the power to resurrect the dead, because it can. Dude, I don't know, this game makes no sense. However, just like America, because this thing doesn't share the same values as me, it's my enemy. And after a very easy fight, he conveniently drops the key to the shield, because why wouldn't Voidco try to keep that thing protected? We jump into the whole Ussy in pursuit of the bananas, and find ourselves in a little fisherman's town that doesn't take kindly to outsiders. After falling hundreds of feet, DK takes no fall damage because he's just built different. We find our rightfully earned bananas, and of course, we don't share because DK's a selfish fuck! Because of this, we get our first skill point, and DK has finally started to use his head and learned that he in fact can throw rocks onto the floor. I'll also not be covering every skill point that we get, because that would just get really tedious. Just know that if the upgrade has anything to do with the Bananza form, we aren't upgrading it. DK seems to be a bit dazed by the banana, so to fix himself he rams his forehead into multiple different rocks to put his brain back into place. I'm starting to think that DK just has 2 brain cells and is fighting for second place. However, during DK's rampage, we collect a few bananas and some fossils that will be used for later. We break free from DK's delusion and start to run around in another territory that we can steal from. We get introduced to these purple glowing rocks that looks like an infinity stone, but the rock is actually holding the secret to one of our main issues: concrete. Concrete is normally only broken by using the first Bananza in the game, the Kong Bananza. However, since we're being blocked from using it, we need a different way to break through these barriers. Well, there are a couple ways, but we'll get into that later. After breaking around the concrete, because I decided that's the best way for some reason, we break through another wall to get to another banana that's added to our collection. DK wants to take the scenic route instead of walking down a straight path, but the rock tries to say that we're living life wrong. I knew this thing sucked. However, throughout DK's little side quest, taking after our inspiration General Grievous, we had some fine additions to our collection, and finally decided to do what the rock wants, because it's selfish and I hate it. This leads us to yet another machine that has a not so suspicious shield and another guard in front of it who thinks adding a little bit of armor will stop the wrath of this big monkey. Anyways, we decide to bomb the thing because it's not worth our time and take even more of what's rightfully mine. We decide that it's time to stop being a hindrance to the wildlife, and by destroying these 3 plugs, we help the citizens return to their lord and savior, Big Monkey. He wants us to give him his music disc because he has treasured albums from Lil Uzi Vert on it, and his old ass can't get out of the chair. Reluctantly, we give him his music disc only after smashing it at the podium for a few times because he won't share his albums with me. Big Monkey decides that we are worthy of being the only ones to listen to his beats, and he uses me and the Rock as his background dancers because he's too lazy to dance on his own. Since DK hates being known as a background character, we smack our chest in anger, releasing the Rock from its seal, revealing Miranda sings. Oh, sorry, Pauline. Although she refuses to sing for us, maybe singing killed her grandma or something. And because DK's only solution to his problems is to use his fists, he smacks his chest to force Pauline to sing for us. Turns out her singing is so bad that it actually transforms DK into Super Saiyan Goku to deal with this problem himself. However, this actually leads to our first real problem of the challenge. Now, we're in a pickle because we're technically using the Bananza, except we're really not, we just returned a layer. And then... Whoa! Okay, I lied. However, since Pauline's singing ruined DK's eardrums, he decides to ignore her and get some beauty sleep. Pauline doesn't like this and decides to wake him up. Unfortunately, DK's hearing restores, and now we have an annoying child on our back talking about returning to the surface or something. Apparently we were also getting stalked as well while all this was happening, which is kinda creepy, but okay. The door on the right finally opens up though, and it allows us to leave this place. However... Oh! So slight problem, guys. There is an unfortunate event where you gotta use the Bananza form to break through there. But you really don't. You can break through all concrete by just using stone. Yeah, okay, I know the whole point of the Kong Bananza is to break through concrete, but I mean, if you can be beaten by a small piece of stone, then you have some issues. Anyways, we finished traversing through this cave and blowing up another guard covered in concrete. Like, seriously, have they not learned the lesson yet? After destroying another machine that's supposed to stop me from following Voidco, which is doing an amazing job by the way, we can drop down to yet another cave. After running in a straight line through that cave, we finally get another taste of sunlight. However, there is this monkey telling me that if we fall off the floating platform we're on, we die. Wow, who could have guessed? And since our only way across is this conveniently placed wall, we climb across and find ourselves face to face with the big bad of this game, Voidco. However, these 3 look like a bunch of bums to me, so I'm not too worried. The boss decides to send his weird looking brother or something to come and bring Pauline back to him. However, for some reason, he won't allow me to give this problem child away, so by using one of his machines, he tries to forcefully take her back. After beating the boss, we find Grumpy Kong just sitting on the floor crying, because his little machine was no match for the rabbit ape that can't stop inhaling all these bananas. We hit a little Fortnite emote on him and jump down to the next layer. After collecting our reward for beating the boss, we now have a new land to conquer. The Hilltop Layer is home to these weird little blue rock guys who try to hide from me when I get close to them. Like, seriously, what's up with this game and everyone hating on DK? Anyways, after exploring the little town and getting distracted by a lizard, we make our way to the big banana rock statue, collecting more bananas on the way. After climbing up to the big banana, we find yet another machine that we can just punch through. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. How many of the machines does one man need? After monkeying around, get it? Okay, I'll see myself out now. We talk to this construction worker who wants 10,000 coins to get rid of a stone statue, and I thought that I was the thief. However, after blackmailing him to give me my way, he decides to cut that price down to 3,000 coins, which is still ridiculous, but whatever. We jump down the giant hole that he left us and get distracted with Donkey Kong Country for a bit. With that aside, we continue running through the tunnel and break through yet another one of Void's machines. but I get distracted again by a hole in the wall that lets me recuperate some of the money that was scammed out of me by that construction worker. After jumping down to the canyon layer, we do the standard Donkey Kong thing, which is breaking through everything I can see and collecting whatever sort of treasures I can find. After about 15 minutes of breaking things, we finally decide to help the citizens of this layer. Do they deserve it? Probably not, but we'll do it anyways. Luckily, the canyon layer does not have any concrete that stops us from progressing until the halfway point, so only a quick recap is needed. We go across a few rails and then we get stuck at the top of a big pillar. However, we get lucky as there's a rock of the same glowy ore that's in the Lagoon Layer. After jumping down the pillar, we're greeted by Grumpy Kong again. I tried giving Pauline to him again, yet he declined. Maybe he's still salty about us Fortnite dancing on him earlier. He decides to fight us with this mech-looking thing that protects him in concrete. Luckily though, our trusty stone's in the area, and after bashing my stone chunk into the mech's forehead a couple times, we are good to continue. Grumpy Kong gives us his key, and we continue on to the next layer, where Voidco seems to be mixing some pancakes for us. We traverse through the cave, and unfortunately we do have to stop Void from making us these sweet pancakes, and we start throwing our glowing pink balls at it until it explodes. After climbing back to the surface, we continue to harm the locals, and eventually face a pillar that is blocking our access to the next layer. However, as we've learned from earlier, a small rock beats concrete, so we bust our way through and drop down to the next layer. Now, the divide is the layer where this challenge goes from super baby mode to why did I decide to torture myself by doing this? We're given two choices on where to go. We could go right, which leads to the forest layer, where we have to use the ostrich Bananza to glide over these airstreams to progress. Or we could go left and go into the freezer layer, where you use the zebra Bananza's speed to run over these soft snow bridges. So either way we are kinda screwed. Or are we? After thinking it over for a few minutes, we decided to go to the freezer layer first to check it out. We travel through the start of the layer like normal, until we make it to a style shop in a little town. This allows us to equip our traction bridges that we were able to buy and fully upgrade in the canyon layer. These give us 60% more speed whenever we're in mud or snow. And finally, we meet the actual first challenge that this run presents us. This small snowy bridge. And well... Guys, I've got this, trust, alright? I have got this. Okay, I in fact did not got this. However, this doesn't necessarily stop us from progressing. We cross the ice water below the bridge to get to the base of the cooling tower, but since the walls of the tower are slippery, DK is unable to climb it. By jumping on top of this ice cream scoop, we're actually able to get up to the first layer of the tower. After trying and failing to double jump to the next layer, my brain decides it's time to turn on after not being used in over 2 years. There's gotta be one spot here. Wait. I have an idea. I have an idea, bruh. That's right, we're channeling our inner Bob the Builder and building a bridge. Due to how soft terrain works in this game, you can throw it onto most surfaces and you can use this to build a bridge, or in this case a staircase from one layer to the next. However, this takes a long time. Like, seriously, to get up to the next layer it took me 10 minutes. Alright, well, now that we've made it up, surely we don't have to build any more bridges, right? Oh. Okay, well now that we know how to properly bridge up, it shouldn't take us 10 minutes to get up there, right? Well, if you thought that, you'd be correct. It didn't take us 10 minutes, it took 20. With 30 minutes of building bridges behind us, we can finally finish off the rest of this layer. First off, we have to fight whoever this is. However, like most women, she goes invisible right after she sees me. So using the powers of delusion, we throw snow chunks at her to get her to like me. After easily defeating Poppy Kong, she gives us the key to her heart, but instead of reciprocating DK's feelings, she pushes us down this hole. We use these small ice cubes to cool down the lava in the area, but we make sure to leave a little bit in the tower so these zebras will never be able to recover after what they've put me through. After dropping down our newly formed hole, we find out that it didn't matter that we left some lava upstairs, because these assholes are definitely going through enough already. Because I want to get out of this hellhole already, we decide to help these guys out. I almost immediately regret my decision, as the usual way to get through this area is locked behind the zebra Bananza. This game really knows how to get on my nerve. Don't worry though, as our trusty bridge strats will get us through this section. Oh, never mind. Luckily, we can use this ice bridge to cool down the lava, and after some insane movement by DK that proves he should have been a gymnast, we can get to the final boss in this layer. This oversized meatball gets in my way, however, because it's not a banana, DK throws snow chunks after snow chunks to cool this dude down. Now normally, you're supposed to use the zebra Bananza to chase after this boss after hitting it with some snow, however, you could just throw some dirt in his face and slow him down. And after repeating this 3 times, the meatball goes down. Finally, after over an hour of suffering, we're finally free from this frozen hellhole. And after dropping down the hole, we immediately find our next hurdle of this challenge. Now, normally in the Junction, after completing either the forest or the freezer layer, you would take the warp gong in the area to complete the other layer before continuing on in the story. However, there is a way that you can skip this long detour, but unfortunately it requires precision, skill, and oh, that was easy. Okay, now that we made it onto this wall, we just have to climb around and oh. Don't worry, I was able to land the jump again. It just took another 30 minutes. Now after climbing the wall properly this time, we can make it to the end of this short path to break Void's machine and getting rid of all the void metal that was corrupting this small island. After cleaning up the area, we walk across this stone path and walk in on Void and his gang fixing his machine that lets him dig into the core of the earth. However, Void decides to run away upon the sight of us because he's a little bitch. We chase Void to the Hilltop Layer and beat him up. Void then runs away again, however, this time to the Lagoon Layer. After warping after Void, we beat him up a second time, and then he runs away a third time, this time back to the Junction. Finally, we jump him for the third time, and after giving him a beating so hard that it'll be impossible for him to forget, he gets his goons to escape with him deeper into the core. There isn't much to do in the resort layer, as it's mainly used to give DK a break from beating everything in front of him that moves. However, while DK is trying to relax, Pauline decides to practice her awful singing, causing him to go on a rampage and destroy a giant watermelon. This is yet another big roadblock in the challenge. By following the path through the start of the layer, we can enter this little cave on the right side to progress through the area. We clear the void metal from the wall and jump onto the nearby arena. Here we face a bat with glue for wings, sure game, sure. And this bat's not the brightest and spews his glue all over the floor, giving me projectiles to throw at him. After hitting both of his wings and bashing his head in, we end up falling through the floor, dropping us deeper into the cave. Now, this seems pretty easy, right? We just have to go through this cave? Now, sure, that might be correct, but the real challenge comes from this. This key is impossible to collect. Normally, you'd use the Elephant Bananza to suck the key out of this tornado. However, since we can't use the Elephant Bananza, we're kinda stuck right now. I tried everything to get this key. Throwing rocks at it, swinging the Bananza disc at it, throwing the Bananza disc at it, and even trying to jump through the top of the tornado to clip into the key. None of this worked. Unfortunately, the key is unable to be collected without the Elephant Bananza. And after learning this, I tried other ways to get through the barrier. Unfortunately, the walls in this area are surrounded by an indestructible rock wall, which means we are unable to clip out of bounds to enter the next area. So after swallowing my pride, I decided that we have to get the Elephant Bananza in order to continue on through the game. After collecting the 2 halves of the Bananza disc, Pauline destroys my eardrums for the second time. However, this time I feel like I deserve it. We go back to the key and proceed to use our newfound power to suck up the key and unlock the next part of the cave. After dropping down the hole, we fight the dumb bat for the second time, but this time he seemed to have learned his lesson, and instead of spewing glue, he starts spewing oil that will hurt DK if we try to pick it up. However, our last encounter seems to mess with his head, and now he throws tornadoes at us that leave little cubes on the floor. After throwing these cubes at the stupid bat, we're able to smash his face in for a second time, sending us deeper into this pit of hell. After chasing the bat for a third time, we come across yet another roadblock in this one layer. Now, when you're normally playing this game, you would just use the Elephant Bananza to suck up some of this floating rock, and after one rock expires, you spit out another one and you can fly to the top of the tower. But since we can't use this Bananza, we have to come up with yet another way. And again, it's a bridge. However, since there's not enough gravel on this small platform, we had to come up with a unique way to actually bridge up to this tower. And in case you're wondering, no, we're not able to throw dirt at the tower and bridge across that way. It's too far and the slippery surface will make the dirt slip off. Now, what is this unique way that we use to bridge up to the tower, you may ask? Well, it actually utilizes 2-player mode. Now with 2-player mode, Pauline can actually copy some of the terrain in the area and shoot it out, which allows you to either break some terrain, or in our case, build bridges. The only issue with this is that Pauline's aim is so awful, I think a stormtrooper would help me out more. Another issue with this bridge is the weather. Because this part of the layer is constantly in a thunderstorm, most of the time my bridge would just get destroyed and I have to rebuild it. However, we were able to overcome these obstacles through sheer grit, determination, and pure rage. This took an hour, by the way. Anyways, with that last hurdle out of the way, we can fight this dumb bat for the final time, where the fight goes the same way as the last one. Dodge the projectiles, avoid getting hit by the tornadoes, and then this time we use 2-player mode to finish the boss off. Because after all that I went through in this layer, I wanted to get out as fast as possible. After beating the boss, we were finally able to progress to the next layer. Now, did we technically fail the challenge already? Yes. But I'm already halfway through the game, so I might as well finish what we started. The Landfill Layer luckily has no puzzles or anything, just a really annoying boss fight. So after diving in a straight line and collecting some bananas for about 15 minutes, we can challenge Grumpy Kong and his Pika Bruiser again. This fight isn't hard whatsoever, it's just more annoying than difficult. Normally, you're supposed to use your Kong Bananza power to break through his concrete shell, but we can't do that. So we have to use the stone that's found under the dirt to break through. However, while we're trying to fight the boss, these little octopus shits start swarming me, which adds to the annoyance of this boss fight. Finally though, we are able to beat the Pika Bruiser up and get out of this layer. The Racing Layer gives us a nice break from all the fighting that we've been doing recently. It also gives us a little reunion between DK, Diddy Kong, and Dixie Kong. They challenged Pauline and I to a Rambi race, but after destroying them in a minute and a half, they just let us leave and go to the next layer. The Radiance Layer is pretty long, and it's split up into a couple different sections. To start, we explore the area we landed in, and while following the path, we use Void's creation against him. By luring the Key Guardian near Void's machine, we're able to remove the protective concrete layering that surrounds it, letting us punch through it and get the key. We drop down to the next sub-layer, and after avoiding the Snake Elder, we use 2-player mode to collect this key that unlocks our next area. We jump down the hole and we're met with this giant tower that we have to bridge up again to reach the top. Luckily, throughout the tower there are small checkpoints, so if I fall, I don't have to redo everything. After reaching the top of the tower, we throw some snow through the roof to let down some light. This allows us to get another key, restoring the light to the layer. After exiting the tower, we try to drop down, but Invisible Girl here tries to stop us. However, because I'm used to women disappearing in front of me, her tricks don't work and she gets more snow thrown into her face. After getting destroyed twice in a row, she resigns from Voidco and gives us the key to drop down deeper into the lair. We explore the area for a bit, collecting fossils as we go, and we finally buy some new pants for DK. These pants reduce the damage of all enemies by 25% when maxed, helping us for some of the later fights in this game. We continue through the lair, going through a couple buildings along the way, and after completing a pretty easy puzzle, we drop down to this hole for the final boss fight of the lair. This Grumpy Kong fight is pretty easy. By throwing these explosive rocks at the ice above him, it'll let down some light that turns off his protective coating and turns it into snow. When this happens, just punch through the snow, and repeat this another time to get to the final phase. After you destroy the bottom 2 layers off of Grumpy Kong's mech, his head will become vulnerable. If you get close to him, he'll swing his pickaxe twice, causing him to stun himself, which lets you punch him and deal some massive damage. By repeating this a couple times, Grumpy Kong will be defeated for the final time. After this Grumpy Kong fight, we get kidnapped by this big eel, which takes us down to the next layer. We wake up and find that we've been jailed for all of our past crimes. Pauline is also no longer on my back, giving me the peace and quiet that I deserve. However, because she's necessary for DK to get his wish from the Banandium root, and she's also a potential sacrifice against Void Kong, we decide to save her. After breaking free from jail, the guards decide that we actually aren't so bad after all. If only they knew. They also tell me that Pauline has the best jail cell out of all of us, which if they knew how bad her singing was, they wouldn't have thrown her up there to begin with. We decide to use these green guards as trampolines because my goals are more important than their well-being. However, after reaching the top of the prison, we find out that it's not Pauline that's trapped in the top cell, it's actually Poppy. And after she begs us to break her out of jail, she disappears again. DK, buddy, now's not the time to be a simp. We chase after her and find out that she was actually waiting for us in front of a giant speaker. We are tasked with restoring the music to the speaker by breaking through void-infested corridors. After we restore the music from all 3 corridors, Poppy tells us that she's figured the way to get us out of the lair. By banging our chest to create the drums necessary for our escape, the big eel that took us in the first place appears in front of us, revealing that they're actually under Void's control. Poppy asks if we want anything else from her, but also calls us darling, feeding into our delusions. We ask her to join us, but she declines and summons a barrel for us instead. After jumping into the eel's mouth, we try to rescue Pauline while she's throwing rocks at us to release her from her seal. I try aiming for her instead, but due to plot armor, she turns on her infinity and dodges them all. After landing a couple shots on her seal, we rescue her and continue on to the next layer. After dropping into the feast layer, we're told to check out the tour of the hamburger factory that's in the center of the layer. However, in order to enter the factory, we first have to press 5 switches before we're allowed in. Which surely won't be too hard to do, right? Actually, yeah, it was pretty easy. 3 of the switches can be pressed by just playing through the game normally, however, the last 2 actually need Bananza powers to unlock them. Except they don't. By turning to our trusty friend 2-player mode, we can force Pauline to build bridges for the 100th time this run. The first one, you normally need the ostrich Bananza to glide up these metal pillars, throwing salt at the muck monsters that are in your way. However, by using 2-player mode, we can copy one of the fractones that are in the area and build a pillar up to the top of this tower. Then, after grabbing a block of salt, we can do a block jump to reach the airstream. However, since we can't glide up like normal, we use Pauline to build a bridge from the top down to the DK. After climbing up our bridge, we continue on our journey to the top, and after clearing the muck off this one platform, we can do another block jump to reach the airstream. Then, we can build yet another bridge from the airstream to the platform. Finally, after jumping on these last 2 platforms, we can make it to the 4th button. Now, for the 5th button, normally you need to use the zebra Bananza to run around this tower to reach the top. However, since we're in 2-player mode, we can just build a bridge from behind the tower. Then, after making it to the top, we can grab this salt that's on the floor and use it to destroy the muck that's blocking our entrance. After clearing it away, we can jump down the tower and get our final button. Now, we can return to the factory, climbing the hamburger to get to the top. After riding the Ferris wheel at the top of the factory, we collect this key and then open up this hole, jumping down it in the process. After following the path below the hole, we find ourselves in front of the boss room. After dropping down this hole, we're able to challenge the boss. This boss fight's pretty easy. The boss spits out this molten muck that'll burn the ground, revealing some salt underneath. By using this salt, we can melt away the boss, and little by little we can punch away at the core, finishing off the boss in about 5 minutes. The Forbidden Layer is one of the final 2 layers in this game. To start, after escaping from the tower that we fell into, we can climb this tower in front of us to proceed through the layer. After bribing the security to let us in, which seems to be a very secure way of blocking people out by the way, we can make it to the last security protocol in this layer.
Wall.
However, because the gold in the game explodes for some reason, we can blow right through the first concrete layer, and use the shards on the floor to break through the remaining layers. Then, after jumping on these 2 platforms, we can jump onto the main platform to finally fight Void Kong. Void Kong's fight is relatively easy. At the start of the fight, he summons 3 of the crocodile guards that we've been fighting all game. After beating him up, we can throw sand to the bridge across from platform to platform, and once we reach Void Kong, we can punch him and send him to the next platform. After repeating this a few times, Void Kong returns to the main platform, where he sets up 3 machines that'll shoot out a barrier around them. After breaking these 3 machines, we can run back to Void Kong and beat him up, finishing him off for good. However, Void Kong refuses to just stay on the ground and turns DK into a rock, just like how Pauline was at the start of the game. However, with the power of friendship, we break out of the rock and watch as K. Rool pops out of the hole, punches Void Kong, and then jumps back into the hole to get the Banandium root. Just a side note, I actually skipped this cutscene because I didn't want to listen to Pauline singing due to how much she pissed me off in the 2-player sections. After jumping down the hole to chase down K. Rool, we land in the planet core. And because the video has gone on long enough already, I'll keep the summary short. The planet core is pretty long, however, most of it's just puzzles that you have to go through to reach the Banandium root, so in a short summary, these puzzles include walking across this gravel bridge, using these machines to build these platforms, destroying these thorns, fighting a mini boss, which got beaten by clobbering it with some rocks. After using a rock to set in some more thorns, we enter this arena where we have to fight waves of enemies to get access to the minecart, which will take us to the next area. Finally, we've made it to the last area, which we're already being blocked. Normally, to move this boulder, you would have to use the Kong Bananza and activate a charge punch to knock the boulder away, letting you use the cart to get to the boss arena. There's no other way to move this boulder. You can't run into it, you can't blow it up, or hit it with rocks. However, by using 2-player mode, we can copy the fractone and create a bridge, and with a little bit of patience, we can use a rock to jump into the boss arena. This boss fight with K. Rool is annoying. Most of his attacks will leave behind this molten banana mush, which when you touch it, it burns you. Now, the strategy for this fight's pretty simple. By staying close to K. Rool, we can limit the amount of times that he can actually hit us. For example, when he does his attack where he shoots out 3 balls, if we sit under his gun, he won't be able to hit us. Now, the best way to deal damage to K. Rool is by rolling and spamming the Y button. This will get you the damage from the roll and from the base attack. I beat this fight on my 3rd try, but it'll still take a little while to complete. By being patient and attacking when it's safe, you should beat K. Rool with relative ease. After defeating K. Rool, DK and Pauline will get dragged by the Bananza route to the surface. However, as this is happening, K. Rool regains consciousness and chases after you. This fight's really easy, and I mean really easy. You don't even have to attack him. As long as you dodge his movements, you'll be fine. After stalling for time, DK and Pauline will get launched into the sky right above New Donk City. However, they spot K. Rool on top of a building holding the Vanadium route, turning the base in New Donk City to mush. Now, there is another boss fight with K. Rool here, where you have to run through the entirety of New Donk City using your Bananza powers to traverse through the terrain. And then at the top of the city, you have to fight K. Rool. However, this entire fight and entire section is possible without using Bananza powers, but due to me needing to get this video out and already being annoyed with this last half of the challenge as is, I just couldn't be bothered to do it myself. With good movement and using 2-player mode, you can get across New Donk City fairly easily. However, it's just this last part of the city that's annoying. Because the path in front of you requires the zebra Bananza to run across, you have to build yet another bridge. And the only way to do that is to copy the texture of the fractons in the section below you. Even then, when you make it to the end of the bridge, there are still another 2 layers of this bridge that you have to cross in order to even challenge K. Rool. And to top it all off, you have to beat K. Rool on your first attempt, or you have to restart the entire section after that first K. Rool fight. You see why I couldn't be bothered to do it myself now? Overall, this challenge sucked. Almost every layer after the freezer layer had either an annoying boss fight, or a section of the layer that needed a bridge of some sort to complete. It made the challenge really monotonous and boring at some points. However, I really do recommend Donkey Kong Bananza as a game. Its graphics are amazing, and the storyline's pretty interesting. If you enjoyed, I'd appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribed to the channel. Any support would be greatly appreciated. I'd like to thank you all for watching this video, and if you want to see more of my content, check out my Twitch channel. The link will be in the description below.